Well, good morning, my friends, and welcome back to the Rhine Report uh, and the judicial wars, the Supreme Court versus its own lower and intermediate courts. I want to discuss this because it's an important aspect of our present desperate circumstances, and it's not reached either by mainstream media, national press, TV, or by the social media networks and the pundits and the outlets available to us all. So, we're going to talk about the judicial wars. Let's set the stage. We are, of course, in the midst of a constitutional crisis, admitted by some experts and denied by others. While a rather vindictive fascist state has become a de facto existential reality and an ever-evolving construction which closely follows the Nazi Germany model in many respects. Some people don't like this analogy, but it's apt. We are now being ruled almost entirely by executive orders, by fiat and declarations and directives, most of which are presumptively unconstitutional. Congress is now controlled by a hardcore of fascist Republican senators and congressmen and women who are complacent to the ideation of a Nazi-like state run by the Trump regime. This regime has complete control over other organs of government, such as the Department of Homeland Security, includes ICE, the Justice Department, and the FBI. While it has managed to denude agencies that have served the public interest, dissolving some and defunding others. Further, this new fascist state has issued hundreds of egregious executive orders and used and manipulated our judicial system to diminish and or curtail our constitutional rights, including free speech and assembly, due process, voting rights, birthright citizenship, attacking law firms, universities, and the free press, our fourth estate. Therefore, given the dire circumstances which we, the people, are now completely reliant on, is the judiciary as the last bastion of preserving our constitutional rights. And here is where a gigantic problem comes to the fore and is the subject of this podcast. The courts below, upon which we are relying when we talk about our judiciary being the last vestige of hope in protecting our rights and American democracy, have in the main, in the lion's share of decisions, done just that, with a series of diverse decisions that have been almost ferocious in their criticism and critique of the executive's grab of unconstitutional power. However, the Supreme Court, on the other hand, is now in the business of battling against all of its own judiciary, from the trial courts to the various circuit courts of appeal, in effect making war against the whole judiciary below, and interestingly enough, including judges appointed by both Republican and Democratic presidents alike. The Supreme Court has abused its shadow docket doctrine. That's what it is, a doctrine. It's not a law. To allow bogus Trump emergency appeals, making decisions of import without briefing, oral arguments, and authoritative opinions to support their legal conclusions. This Supreme Court has unleashed the horror we now all experience by making it virtually impossible to prosecute Trump, granting him an executive immunity that places him above the law, the king, or an emperor, emboldening him to create the fascist state we must now endure without fear of recrimination or accountability of any kind. At virtually every turn, the Supreme Court has endeavored to handcuff the courts below, allowing Trump to win important decisions on the notorious shadow docket without justification and where the issues are briefed, such as in the 14th Amendment case, which they heard and repudiated, making a nonsense of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Incredibly, even where they handed down a 9-0 decision on the rights of immigrants facing deportations to have due process and to have the 200 that were sent to El Salvador returned, Justice Roberts managed to replace the expression effectuate with, quote, the expression facilitate, thereby weakening the decisions of the courts below and making it impossible for them to find redress for these immigrants. It's impossible. The situation goes on and on all over America and is still taking place. And indeed, the Supreme Court has just given license to the Trump administration to send deported immigrants to third countries where they might be murdered. The South Sudan, all over Africa, there's nothing but, internecine war. And this court has just allowed this to continue. They've licensed fucking murder. And the courts below find it impossible because their positions have been weakened and their ability to find redress for the threatened and kidnapped prisoners, causing further chaos. And so the Supreme Court makes internecine war against the whole of the judiciary, and the battle rages because I am sure, very sure, that every jurist involved in the system hearing these matters is well aware of the dangers to justice and to our Constitution caused by the people at the apex, the Supreme Court of the United States, who've gone rogue and corrupt and fascist. So there we have it. We've at least discussed something from a different perspective, and your views would be appreciated. Analysis, criticism. I always ask the same thing. And Lord, let me find a way around this goddamn algorithm. Cheers.